What is up everyone, and welcome to some more F1 22 My Team Career Mode. This time we're going to be at Monza for the Italian Grand Prix. Last time out we were in Zandvoort for the Dutch Grand Prix, and it didn't actually go particularly well compared to last season. We won the race in Season 2, this time we picked up just 1 point after finishing P10, and we didn't have any issues or anything like that. That was just the genuine pace of our car around that circuit. We tried to defend from the cars around us, we couldn't manage it. It didn't help that we weren't on a great strategy either. Everyone around us started on softs, we were on mediums. But yeah, we were still unfortunate to only pick up 1 point from that race. But I mean, even that was, we were lucky that Hamilton didn't seem to have much pace around the circuit. So we were able to pick up a point that otherwise could have been his very easily. So anyway, this time out we are going to be in Monza. And as you can see, we just got our final aerodynamic upgrade placed onto the car. So that means that we now have the maximum capacity aero package that we can get. Our aero literally cannot get better for this Grand Prix, and that is going to hold us in very good stead for the next few races to come, especially ones with lots of high-speed corners. This one obviously does have a few high-speed corners. Primarily what you look at in Monza is straight line speed though, so we're still not going to be the best car for sure. I think the first race that I could conceivably see us being the best car at is probably Suzuka, which is in a couple races time. But yeah, for now we have to get through this race. If we can sort of get maybe a top 6, that would be an ideal scenario. It looks like it's going to be a wet qualifying. I don't know if that's a good thing or not anymore. After Belgium, I'm kind of scratching my head whenever the rain comes down as to whether I'm going to get lucky or unlucky. So yeah, one thing that is for sure, if you look at the performance index, we have closed up dramatically to the cars in front. We're not quite on their level. I'm not going to pretend that we are. But we're certainly a lot closer to them than we were, particularly Alfa Romeo. There should be no issues contending with the Alfa Romeos going further from here. And yeah, it should be pretty smooth sailing to finish ahead of them. I would hope so, at least. And yeah, so ideally we want to be sort of finishing top 6. I want Fittipaldi to be finishing maybe 12th or 13th roughly every single race, because you know, for all I feel, we are at worst that level of performance, sort of around 12th or 13th in the race. I don't want him falling any lower than that. I don't want him being outperformed by AlphaTauri, Haas, Aston Martin or Williams, because we're so far ahead of them at this point that they shouldn't really even enter into the conversation, quite frankly. It should be a simple we are faster than them, and that's that. We go through practice now, and yeah, we had some decent pace. We didn't do any soft compound running, but yeah, we didn't look bad. It seems Fittipaldi was in the mix a little bit as well. He was only like 0.04 of a second off of Hamilton on the same compound of tyres. So yeah, that was encouraging signs to see. Hopefully he can have a strong performance here as well. And yeah, we're going to get a few development boosts on the car, but it's actually not going to be very many, because we've pretty much run out of upgrades that we can boost. In fact, yeah, there was no development boost there. You can see we sped through that amazingly quickly. And yeah, I think we've already done all the upgrades. Maybe I'm confusing it for last race where we put the final upgrades on the car. So yeah, there is nothing else we can invest in. You see I'm pressing recommend upgrade. We definitely got enough if we had anything, and yeah, there's nothing to do at the moment. So all we can do is wait for our future durability upgrades to get on the car, and then we just need to be bringing in as much cash as we can, which means we're going to be aiming for top 5 finishes and outperforming Perez wherever possible, because that is going to be the difference between us getting to you know, sort of like $250,000 at the end of a race weekend, and $750,000 at the end of a race weekend. So yeah, we will be wanting to contend with Perez and finish in the top 5 in the races to come. I think we have a shot at doing it here, possibly. Obviously we got P3 here last year when there was some chaos that we thrived on. But then Singapore, I think, is going to be very tricky to do any better than sort of like P8, knowing my luck. And then yeah, Suzuka's the first race that I think we could be very, very fast at. I did 2 back-to-back laps in Q1. I actually did this straight after I finished my first one, and it was good enough for a 1:28.4, which I think will hopefully be good enough to see us through to Q2. And indeed, it was good enough to see us through to Q2 in P2 nonetheless. Esteban Ocon topping the timesheets in the wet at the moment. Not that surprising, given that the Alpines are one of the fastest cars in our career mode. But yeah, still bizarre to see him up there instead of Alonso, given that Alonso seems to have had the pace advantage when it comes to the two of those drivers so far this season. Obviously, I'm keeping an eye on what Alpine are doing, because they are closing us up quite dramatically in the fight for P5 in the Constructors' Championship, as we cross the line to do another 1:28.4 on a set of wet tyres. And we're actually going to do yet another back-to-back lap in Q2, and we'll see where we can finish in Q2 and whether we can get through to Q3 or not on one back-to-back lap. I did a bit of slipstreaming on Sainz there. You probably weren't able to see it because I just cut after I'd done the slipstreaming, but that gave me a bit of an advantage, and we're only improving by a 10th, but hopefully it will be good enough. We move up one position in the order, and yeah, hopefully that will see us through to Q3 with a 1:28.3, and yeah, hopefully we'll be able to get a good performance in. Yeah, so we do make it through. Hamilton is eliminated. He is the one driver from the top 5 teams that doesn't make it through. Fittipaldi, also unfortunate not to make it through, but P14, he can definitely battle the cars around him from there, I'm sure. And yeah, hopefully he can get a good result. P12, P13, that's sort of the benchmark that I'll be looking at for him. And yeah, now we move into the final part of qualifying. Charles Leclerc does a 1:27.7 to open the scoring, and I think I'm going to be very fortunate if I am able to contend with that. My first lap is a 1:28.3, and we'll see. I waited till the end of the session this time to see if the track had dried out any, and as you see, as I come round on my second flying lap, it hadn't really improved much. You know, I was able to improve my lap a little bit just by doing what I could. And we improved by a couple tenths as we came through the Ascari chicane. But as we come through Parabolica, I think I'm not going to take it as well as I did in my first flying lap. So we lose about a tenth in that. And I don't know if that's going to be the difference between a position or not. As we cross the line, it's good enough in the end for us to get P5. Okay, that's a pretty strong performance. If we can hold P5 in the race, then I'll be laughing.
For tomorrow's race, but before we begin, let's have a quick look at those who'll be fronting the grid: Leclerc, Norris, and Fernando Alonso. Well, that wraps up qualifying, but don't worry, we'll be back tomorrow as we head into the Grand Prix.
So, P5, it's a good position to start from, and a real opportunity for us to get our maximum gambit of sponsor bonuses here, especially because we've out-qualified Perez as well. I think he'll win the rivalry, but perhaps we can win these last few battles against him to at least make it look like it wasn't a convincing victory, and also to try and grab the sponsor bonuses for outperforming our rival. That's pretty much all I want in these next couple races until we can get a new rival, and hopefully I can finally make a rival someone who I actually consider a pace equal to myself, such as maybe one of the Alpines or one of the Mercedes at the moment. Those are the two teams I'm looking at that they're sort of my equals in terms of performance right now. So yeah, Red Bull, Ferrari, McLaren, not really teams I consider myself able to compete with. Maybe Ricciardo, but certainly not Norris. But enough chat about rivals. It is now time for us to get into the race weekend.
It's time for the Italian Grand Prix once again, here at the beloved and iconic Autodromo Nazionale di Monza. With the lowest downforce and drag of any circuit in the season, expect to see drivers making the most of the slipstream effect here today. With top speeds reaching 215 miles per hour, only a few places can challenge Monza's crown as the fastest track in Formula One. Hard braking zones going into the 3 chicanes make up the majority of the 11 corners on this 3.6-mile circuit. And just in case the slipstream wasn't enough, 2 DRS zones will help encourage some close action. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. Charles Leclerc lines up on pole position, and Lando Norris lines up alongside. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Fernando Alonso, Verstappen, Robinson, and Russell. Sainz, Perez, Ricciardo and Lewis Hamilton. Schwartzman, Fittipaldi, Guan Yu Zhou and Tsunoda. Lundgaard, Ocon. They'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. Pierre Gasly and Lance Stroll. Magnussen, Albon. Mick Schumacher. They've taken a grid penalty. And Nicholas Latifi. Now it's almost time for lights out, so let's go down to the track. It's race day yet again, and joining me for a chat is Anthony Davidson. And our racers are certainly in for a rough day today. What will you be watching out for as they head into turn 1?
Well, the start of the race is always one of the most nerve-wracking parts. You have to hope that everyone is able to get off to a clean start, and this is possibly the trickiest part of the entire race. So many drivers in such a small space, and finding your braking point into turn 1 as well. It's a testament to the driver's skill that there aren't more incidents.
Well, I guess Mark has nothing to say on this occasion, but we'll see if we can go on a good tyre strategy to hopefully get ourselves into a good position in the race early. Perhaps we can go on a set of softs. We can indeed. 9 laps on the softs, followed by, that would be what, 17 laps on the mediums. It's going to be quite an aggressive tyre strategy, but I think we should be able to do it. But we're going to need to warm up the tyres quite significantly if we want to get ourselves into a position where we can get a good start and hopefully contend with the cars around us. See, I go very deep at the first chicane there. There was not enough heat in the brakes whatsoever, but we managed to make it round the track without having any more incidents like that. And we line up on the grid, and we'll see if we can get a good parking here. I'm going to edge myself forward. 0.1, we love to see it, and hopefully that is going to enable us to compete with Verstappen in front of us, who is on the medium compound tyres. I want to outdrag him down into turn 1 and hopefully overtake him, but we will see if that is possible as the lights come on. And the lights go out, and it's a pretty decent start from us. You can see we're slightly gaining on Verstappen, but he is always going to be faster through the second phase. It's just something that I can't control. I don't know why it happens, but it often does. We're being pressured by Perez a little bit into turn 1, but I'm going to try and go round the outside of Verstappen, which turns to the inside at the inside of the chicane, and we're up into P4. It didn't happen quite the way I wanted it to happen, but it happened, and that is all that I need to worry about now as we set our sights on perhaps getting onto the podium. But the cars in front of us, Leclerc, Norris, Alonso, there's no doubt in my mind that these three have been a cut above everyone else this season in terms of their pace and performance. Alonso might not be third in the championship, but that is just because it took a while for Alpine to get to a point where they were a front-running car. But now they are. There's no doubt in my mind that he's just as good as Norris and Leclerc. He's the only person that I've seen that can challenge these guys on a race weekend so far this season. I'm trying to think if Red Bull have won any races, and I can't remember one that they have this season, but maybe you guys have a stronger memory than I do, as we're now being pressured by Verstappen as we come down to the chicane, and I try and do a bit of a switchback on him, and it seems like it's worked just about. This is a very intense battle between me and him right now, as he's going to try and pressure me into these fast right-handers as well, but we have the pace, and we have the tyres, and we have the aero package to stay ahead of him for now, as Russell has actually got ahead of him for now, so we might come under pressure from George Russell at some point in the future, but maybe Verstappen will get him back. We'll have to wait and see. It looks like Russell might be pressuring us into the Ascari chicane, thinks better of it, and actually Verstappen sweeps around the outside of him there, so that is Verstappen back up into P5. Now we are on to lap 3, and there's a yellow flag as we go off the circuit, in amazement that there was a yellow flag, I guess, and from the lead of the race, it is Charles Leclerc at the team's home Grand Prix. He is out. That is over for Ferrari, and basically any chance of them winning at Monza is down the drain, because Carlos Sainz is all the way down in, what is that, P7, 8, I think, something like that. There's no way, surely, that he is going to be able to battle his way all the way back up to P1 by the end of the Grand Prix. I think, you know, he'll be lucky if he even manages to get onto the podium, never mind into a winning position. So that is gutting for Ferrari, absolutely brutal, and not what the Tifosi would want to see at all. We'd be pressured by Verstappen once again into the first chicane, but we hold on to him once again, but I imagine he'll be applying the pressure again as we come on the run down to the second chicane. I get onto the grass a little bit, and that kind of compromises my run, and yeah, that means that he's pressuring me, and also it looks like Russell is pressuring me as well into the chicane, but we managed to hold off Russell. But I think that might be the end of our battle with Verstappen. He's a bit too far ahead, and as Russell pressures us more, that is just going to mean that Verstappen gets further and further away from us. We will have the DRS on this occasion, and it will be burning battery as well, so maybe we can close him down a bit. But as you see, as we move on to the next lap, he's already extended the gap to 2 seconds. We get a message from Mark now saying that there is a new strategy available, and yeah, it's moving on to the hard compound tyres at the end of lap 6 instead of onto the mediums at the end of lap 9. I guess I'm pushing the soft compound tyres more than expected, which checks out. We still need to get those ultimate tyre wear upgrades on the car, but we can't get those until we upgrade the chassis facility to spec 3, so it might still be a while before that happens, unfortunately. We've been overtaken by Perez, but we will have the DRS on the main straight, so especially with our superior aero package, you see it there, how much I closed him down at Parabolica, or the Curva Alboreto as some people refer to it. Yeah, you can see that we just managed to get the overspeed on him there, coupled with the DRS, coupled with the battery. We actually are able to fight him back into the first chicane. It's going to be close wheel-to-wheel racing. We go around the outside at the second phase of the chicane, and we just about stay ahead, but he will be pressuring us back into the second chicane. You see that he's already managed to get a full car length ahead, but we might be able to fight him back. He moves to the outside of the corner. We switch to the inside. We do a little bait and switch once again and go up the inside, and that is all that we needed to do to keep ahead of Perez for now. It doesn't matter too much because we are coming into the box at the end of this lap, but I want to hold on to every position I possibly can, especially because I'm in P4. It's a really solid place to be as we now come into the pits at the end of lap 6, and we're going to be fitting the hard compound tyres to the end of the Grand Prix, and we'll see how much we can fight on those when the other guys will no doubt be fitting mediums to the end. The only exceptions to that will probably be Verstappen, who will also be going on to hards.
One of the front wheel removals. They'll be incredibly disappointed.
It's a bit annoying. He said front wheel removals. I'm pretty sure that was the rear left that they were having problems with. But yeah, it's not much we can do about that. It only cost us a couple seconds. Hopefully we can make that up in the next few laps as we push while everyone else is still on slightly older medium tyres. I don't know when they'll be coming in. I imagine around lap 9 or 10. And you see as we move to lap 9 now, the first few cars are coming in. That's Hamilton and Ricciardo who have pitted. I think Joe behind us had already pitted. Maybe he had some damage at the start or something. So we'll see where we come out in relation to Ricciardo and Hamilton given our pit stop error, and actually we managed to get ahead of both of them still, and they were pretty close behind us before the pit stop phase, so that is encouraging to see that we have made up at least a little bit of the time that we lost earlier in the Grand Prix. And yeah, we'll see if we can keep them behind for the remainder of the next 17 or so laps. It's going to be a tall order, but I think we can probably pull it off if we're sort of cunning and strategic about the whole thing. We'll now look at Russell and Ocon, who I think we were racing with kind of as well at the start of the race, and I think that's Perez just ahead as well. And we come out ahead of all of them, and actually Ricciardo and maybe Hamilton as well look like they're in the mix to jump all of those guys as well. So yeah, not the play, potentially. We move on to lap 13 now, and we've caught up to the back of Kevin Magnussen, and we're going to try and get him before we get to the Ascari chicane using a bit of DRS and battery. And then his ex-teammate Mick Schumacher is just up the road ahead of him. We brake hard into the Ascari chicane, and we just about managed to take the position off of Magnussen, but it looks like he might actually be challenging us back. He's somehow got the overspeed. I don't know if he's using his battery or what here. He must be, because he's insanely quick, but we're going to try and dive back up the inside of him. He shouldn't have moved to the outside, otherwise we would have had no way of doing that. But anyway, it doesn't matter too much. Schumacher's into the pits. Magnussen's staying out because Stroll has come into the pits, and Stroll was ahead of Magnussen, so he gets the strategic priority. And we'll see if Magnussen can hold up the cars behind me for a little bit to enable me to maybe start getting away from Magnussen and Perez and Ricciardo a little bit. Not Magnussen so much, because obviously he's already needing to pit again. But it does seem that in the pit stop phase we have been jumped by Carlos Sainz, so I assume that he's got some kind of significant pace advantage. But it's all for squat, unfortunately, because he is also out of the race. You saw the smoke billowing out the back of his car just there, and that is a double Ferrari DNF at Monza for the second time in 5 years? That is horrible for Ferrari, and the Tifosi are probably already leaving, you know, not even sticking around to watch the remainder of this race. You see the big Italian flags in the crowd, and you think to yourself, that must be absolute heartbreak for them. No Italian drivers on the grid to support, and now the only Italian team on the grid that they can support is AlphaTauri, who are nowhere to be seen in this Grand Prix. I don't know where Gasly and Tsunoda are, but it's sure as hell in the points at the moment. We're being pressured by Ricciardo quite significantly right now, but I think we can probably keep him at bay for now, and we'll see if we can do anything to stem the attacks from the 5 cars that have emerged in a train behind us. That's right, we have Ricciardo, Perez, I think it's then Hamilton. Yep, Hamilton, and by extension it must be Ocon and Russell just behind Hamilton as well. So that's 5 cars that are all gunning for this position in P4. It's a very heated battle. There's no doubt I am the slowest car in this train, which is why there's a train here. But I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to try and be a bit crafty, a bit divisive, and see if I can keep these guys behind. I've already devised a strategy which you might have seen, and you're going to see it again on this lap if you haven't seen it yet. It's a pretty surefire way to make good on the idea that you can keep these guys behind if you're just strategic about where you initially let them through. So I, at the end of this straight, have been letting Ricciardo through. You might have heard a little lift, and that allows him to get through, which means he is ahead at the curve at Alboreto, but at the DRS detection point, it means I'm behind, so I can basically wait for him to take the DRS, wait for him to get ahead at the DRS detection point. I will take the DRS, and then I use the DRS to get back ahead of him as we come on the run down to the first corner on the next lap. So I just fall behind him for a very minuscule amount of time, and then there's basically no way that he can fight with me after that. So I lifted again a bit there. It was a big lift actually. It needs to be a careful lift that you do, because if you lift too much, you run the risk of letting the person in P6 through as well, and then that is going to mean that they're going to have DRS as well, and you're going to find it really hard to sort of fight against them. And probably what will end up happening is that they will gain both positions in a very short space of time. But we do the same thing twice. Ricciardo has led us through once again in the DRS zone. He looks like he might be pressuring us back as we come down to the second chicane, however, and we'll see if we can fight him into the chicane. Taking the inside line on this chicane is very unlikely that they're going to fight you too much into it. If they have the inside, they'll try and dive quite heavily into it, so you really want to make sure you're on the inside at all times when you come into that chicane. And even if you're a little bit far back, you can still probably dive up the inside and they won't fight you too hard. That time I actually didn't lift. Hamilton just had the speed advantage. But with DRS and with battery, I am going to no doubt be taking this position very swiftly back from Hamilton. And we'll see if we can hold on for just the last few laps in this Grand Prix. I think it's a pretty clear-cut P4 for us if we can just keep doing what we're doing for a few more laps. Doesn't seem like anyone's able to get through. Hamilton's actually fallen off in the last couple of laps, and Russell has taken his place. Ocon is down there in P8. I don't know what happened to Perez. I guess maybe he got caught up in some kind of incident or something like that, because he has now fallen away. And one thing that I haven't been focusing on too much in this race, but I'll let you know now, is that the battle for what was P10 before Perez had an incident and had to pit, and is now P9, is going on between Robert Schwartzman and Enzo Fittipaldi, which means Fittipaldi is basically guaranteed to score points in this race, and we just have to wait to see if it's going to be 2 or 1 point that he brings home. As we cross the line to take P4, I was a bit delayed on that, my apologies, I was too busy talking about Enzo Fittipaldi, who I'm hyping up a lot, and it's, a nice 12 points for us. We outperform Perez, so we get the full gambit, $750,000 of sponsor bonuses.
To exploit the slipstream behind them. What a great win here at Monza. Tell me, Ant, how did they manage to achieve this win?
I think it was clear what the main contributing factor out on track was: speed. I know it sounds like an awfully reductive statement, but fast cars win races, and we saw that today with our winner.
Our drivers are making their way out for the podium celebrations, and it's going to be McLaren picking up the winner's trophy. Congratulations to the entire team for that fantastic performance.
So, Lando Norris extends his championship lead by either 25 or 26 points. I'm not sure if he got fastest lap or not. And his main competitor DNF'd on lap 3. So that is surely a damning sight for Ferrari. And maybe you could call this the position in which the championship was out of sight for Leclerc, or at least it would be a huge recovery if Leclerc was still able to win this championship. He basically has to win every race from now on and hope Norris gets a string of poor results.
Who moves further ahead at the top of the table? Let's have a look then at the drivers' standings. Some amazing talent out on the track today, but Anthony, who would you pick as your driver of the day?
Let's give it to Esteban Ocon. That was a commanding performance today. Very impressive indeed.
It's time to check out the constructors' standings. No change in the top spot then, but with today's points, their hold on that lead is getting weaker. Well, what an end to another fantastic weekend of racing. Thanks to everyone who joined us, and we'll see you for the next one.
So, we are 21 points down, or sorry, 21 points ahead of Alpine in the Constructors' Championship. Now, if you didn't see, Enzo Fittipaldi ended up finishing 10th. Schwartzman got the better of him, but that's okay, because that's still his first point this season, and it's maybe a little bit later than I would have liked it, especially considering pretty much every other driver on the grid has scored points this season now, apart from, I think, Latifi and Magnussen, maybe? I'm not sure. There's one other... No, I think Magnussen has. There's one other driver. I can't remember who it is. Other than Latifi, who I think has yet to score points this season. And yeah, now Enzo Fittipaldi is no longer one of the drivers that's part of that club, so that's great to see. I think I'm pretty dead set on re-signing him for the following season if I can. But obviously we have to focus on upgrading our facilities as well. So I think if Enzo Fittipaldi is too expensive, what I might look at potentially doing is hiring a slightly cheaper driver for a season while we improve the car, and then trying to get Fittipaldi back in season 5 maybe, because I do really like having him as my teammate. He's probably my favourite teammate I've had of the 4 that I've had so far in this career mode, and yeah, it would be nice to potentially get Fittipaldi as sort of my long-term teammate, but I don't know what the likelihood of that is if we let him go. But if he's too expensive, I can't see a world in which it makes sense to sign him at the moment. He's not banging in amazing performances for us. He's not making it as easy for us to contend in the championship where we are. But the risk I run is if I try and sign a better driver and then they perform just as well as Fittipaldi's performing now, I could have just re-signed Fittipaldi for less money. So yeah, I think the ideal scenario for us is probably going to be re-signing him for another season, trying to build the car as much as we can from here. All we need to do is get money, but I guess the argument that you could make is that if we finish high up in the championship, we'll get money from that as well. So yeah, it really remains to be seen. I think I'll probably just sign a cheap driver again, and then we'll go from there. But we've still got a few races left with Fittipaldi, and maybe if he's cheap enough, I'll think twice and re-sign him next season as well. But yeah, like I said, obviously that's going to come in, I guess, 6 races time, I think is how many are left. Next up is the Singapore Grand Prix. It didn't go well for us last year, but we probably would have scored points if it hadn't been for a driver error at the start of the Grand Prix. So we'll see if we can get a bit of redemption there for what happened. And yeah, I can only hope that we can keep up this strong level of performance that we've been showcasing intermittently at the moment. You know, obviously we had the win in Austria, P4 in Belgium, P4 here at Monza. If we can do well at Singapore as well, that'd be fantastic. But you'll have to wait and see, because that is going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed, please make sure you like and subscribe. Thank you so much for the support on the recent videos. It's been absolutely incredible to see, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.